Hi.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are brand new here, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. Y'all, today I'm gonna go through every single book that I read in 2021. This last year, honestly, these last 2 years have just been crazy. There's been so many ups and downs, but in those downs, I found a little light. I rediscovered my love of reading. It's always been there, but I just went absolutely off the rails bonkers in the last year. I just read so many books, had such a great time, and because I was reading so many books and I so badly wanted somebody to talk to about it, I made this channel and I met all of you guys in the process, and it's been an absolutely beautiful year. But yeah, I just wanted to do a video where I kind of like rapid fire went through every single book that I read. I'm not going to go into depth on any of these because there's pretty much a dedicated video for like every single one on my channel, and I'm also going to be doing like a best of 2021 video in the next week where I talk about like my top favorites, and I will go into depth on those. But yes, I'm just gonna get started. I'm not gonna go totally in chronological order because I feel like it just makes sense to group certain things together, like series or certain authors. It'll be all over the place if not, because I'm all over the place and that will be annoying to watch. So yeah, I have about 85 books sitting on the floor next to me. Those were really fun to take out of my bookshelf and organize, but I'll do it for you guys because I will do anything for you guys. I love you so much. Yeah, let's just get started. So I ended my 2020 and started my 2021 in the same way, in the same world, with Shadowhunters. I never read the Shadowhunters series until 2020. I know I was extremely late on it, but once I discovered it, I was super duper hooked. So at the start of this year, the first thing I read was the Infernal Devices series. If you don't know, the Shadowhunters world has 5 different series within it and then several like side stories. There's like over 20 books in total, and Cassandra Clare is still writing them. It's honestly crazy. But this series is like a prequel series to the main series, which is the Mortal Instruments. This series is god tier. Infernal Devices, literally Will Herondale, I would absolutely die for you. It was incredible, a great way to start my year. Straight up 5 stars. And then after finishing that series, I finished the last half of the Mortal Instruments series because that's really like the best way to do it. You read the first 3 of Mortal Instruments, go to Infernal Devices, and then come back to Mortal Instruments. I highly recommend doing that. This series I like. It's not amazing. Infernal Devices is so much better. You could tell that she wrote the first 3 and then was planning to be done, but it was very successful, so she's like, let me write 3 more. And it's just a little all over the place, but still, I love the main guy in this. It's good. And then I read the 2 books in the Eldest Curses series, the Red Scrolls of Magic and the Lost Book of the White. This is like a spin-off series about a couple within the Mortal Instruments. This series is still being written. I really like this one. I really enjoy the couple, so it's a fun time. I also read a couple of side stories, The Bane Chronicles and Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. I don't own them anymore because I did not like them at all. Like, I thought they were a waste of my life and time, and I think I have videos kind of ranting about both of them on this channel. But yeah, that's how I started out the year. I didn't mention this, but if you're not aware what the Shadowhunters world is, they're basically like demon hunters. It came out around the time of Twilight, and it's really interesting. It's really cute. It's a YA, but like, it's pretty well done. I would check it out if you haven't. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and continue to go through all the series I read somewhat in chronological order. I think it's best to do that, and then I'll get into like the standalones. But the next series I read this year was the Crave series by Tracy Wolff. This is like a YA vampire romance that takes place at a boarding school in Alaska. Honestly, the writing is not incredible at all, but like, it is such a page turner. It's so binge worthy, super easy to read. There's like some love triangle action, supernatural, paranormal. It's good, and I can't wait for the next book to come out early this year. Like, I will be the first in line to read it. I think I'm just gonna start stacking these books behind me, and we'll see how that goes. We might end up with an avalanche, but let's try it. So the next series I read has to be my favorite series I read this entire year, the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the best fantasy book / series I've ever read. I couldn't be more obsessed with it. The main character in this is just everything. It's kind of vampires, kind of werewolf, high fantasy. It's a massive world, but if you haven't read it yet, it's so amazing. And then also she started a spin-off series called the Flesh and Fire series, so I read the first book in that as well. Next, I read the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. I started this series whenever I was in 7th grade, I think. The Lightning Thief was my favorite book I ever read in school, and I realized this year that I just never finished it. So I finished it It's a middle grade, but I don't even care. It's incredible. Greek mythology is so fun to me and I love reading about it. So if you haven't read this one yet, definitely do it. This next series I feel like deserves like some sort of MVP award from my channel, because I think it was like kind of the book in the series that made a lot of people start following me. I love it more than anything. Seriously, the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. These are kind of like, it's a series, but it's also companion novels in the way that each book is about a different guy with a different girl. These rich boys that live in this small town that are a part of this sort of like club gang situation called the Four Horsemen. They get arrested. And then the rest of the like series is them like after they've broken out of prison, flashing back to the night that they were arrested and before that. It like, I can't even begin to explain it, but there's so many videos on my channel about it. It's so good. Penelope Douglas is like my favorite author ever after reading this series, and I've read so many more of her books, which we will talk about, but this series is just, again, another god tier one. Like, I will never forget what I experienced the first time I read Corrupt. I'm just like, these kind of books exist. It's very spicy, very crazy. The story is amazing, just all around, yes. The next series that I read was the Off Campus series by Elle Kennedy. These are hockey romances, companion novels. Again, each book is about a different guy that is on the hockey team at Briar University, and it focuses on them and a different girl. This series is good. The first book and the third book are so good. The guy in the first book is literally in my top 3 all-time book boyfriends ever. Book 2 and 4, I could have gone without. Book 5, I haven't read yet because I don't think I'm going to like it, because it's just like a novella of epilogues basically for each of these stories, and I'll get to it eventually, but overall this series is very good, and I'm going to start the Briar U series very soon. The next series is the most talked about series on Book Talk this year and maybe ever, the ACOTAR series. I read the first 3 books in it. I love this series. Like, I do not begin to understand Sarah J Maas's brain. Like, this world is so vast, so complicated. Book 2 is just legendary. Like, it's like one of the best books to ever exist. Book 1, also very good. Book 3, I didn't love as much. Book like 4 and 5 though, book 5, they're behind me, that's why I'm looking, are supposed to be like god tier. So I will finish this series soon, but it's like high fantasy, fairies. It's a journey. It's very good. The next series that I read was the Ravenhood series by Kate Stewart. This series is just an emotional roller coaster all around. It's about like this girl that moves to a small town to live with her dad, and she ends up getting mixed up with this group of guys that are in this brotherhood. It's wild. Somebody reminded me yesterday that I never made my review on this series. It just like completely slipped my mind, so I'll be doing that soon. Be on the lookout for that, but it's God. So many things to say about this series. Next, I started the Maid series. I read the first 2 books. I haven't read the third yet. These are mafia romances. Again, kind of like companion novels. Each book focuses on a different guy and a different girl. The first one was pretty good. The second one was amazing. If you're into mafia romance, this was my first ever one, and I'm definitely going to be reading more. So the next series I dipped into this year was a reread. I read Twilight and New Moon because Twilight was put back on Netflix and we were all in our feels about it, and I just had to re-experience it. This is my original copy of Twilight from I think 2008. It's literally like cracking down the middle. This was the book that made me fall in love with reading. I'll never stop talking about it. Like, I was 8 years old the first time I read Twilight, and it's forever in my heart. I love it so much. I'm gonna finish the rest of the series probably this year. I had to dip my toes back in because Edward Cullen is my first love, and he's never going anywhere. The next series I read this year was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is kind of like the movie Knives Out meets Gossip Girl. It's really so interesting and different from anything that I read this year. It's a YA, kind of like a mystery situation. It was fun. I really liked it. I really liked all the characters in it, and I'm really excited for the finale to come out this coming year. Okay, so these few are the first books in fantasy series that I started, but I haven't read the rest of the series. Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Super good. I totally need to get back to this series. I've heard it's kind of gone downhill, which makes me really sad, but I really liked it, and I'm totally going to read the rest. A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. This is a Hades Persephone retelling. There's a couple other books in the series, and there's also a series that's from Hades' perspective. I like this book, but I'm not like overly stoked to continue the series. I'm sure I'll get to it eventually, but yeah. The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. I did not like this book at all, and I'm also extra upset about it because it was literally like my most anticipated read the entire year. I was so excited to read this during the month of October because of all the witchy vibes, but it just completely fell flat for me, and I'm definitely going to be donating it probably right after I film this video. And then I read Hush Hush. This is the first book in the Hush Hush series by Becca Fitzpatrick. This came out during the time of Twilight as well, and I never read it, and I genuinely can't believe I never read it because I loved this first book, like, and I especially know if I would have read it at that time, I would have eaten it up. So I need to finish the rest of the series. There's 3 more books, but it was super, super good. It was kind of like a fallen angel situation, kind of reminded me of Shadowhunters, but it was really good. Okay, now we're gonna get into all of the standalone books that I read this year. I'm gonna start with like authors that I discovered and read a ton of their books. The first one, it's only natural. Colleen Hoover. Like, I swear to God, I would have no following on this channel whatsoever if it wasn't for this woman. I read 7 of her books this year. Oh my goodness. I just can't get enough of her. Like, she is seriously, she can't do any wrong. Like, every one of her books is incredible. She's dipped her toe into like several genres, and she's just amazing. The first book I read by her was Verity. This is a thriller and so completely different from the rest of her books, which makes it funny that it's the first book of hers that I read, but it blew my mind. Literally gave me like jump scares. A book gave me jump scares, gave me nightmares, made me nauseous at some points, but like, it was incredible. Next, It Ends With Us. This is the most viewed video on my channel. It has about 50,000 views, which is insane. This book was like the biggest book I feel like this entire year. It's heart-wrenching, but like, I think every person in their life needs to read this book. It's so eye-opening, so well done. It literally feels like it's real, and it hurts. The next book I read by Colleen Hoover was my favorite book I read this whole year, probably like my favorite book ever, just about top 3, Ugly Love. I have talked about this book to no end on this channel, and I will never stop talking about it. It is like the best written book I've ever read, and it just destroys me inside and out every single time. Again, it feels so real. Like, it feels like you're there with the characters. If you haven't read this yet, stop what you're doing and go read it. Next, November 9th. This one was good, not my absolute favorite. Again, hurt me just like all of her books. Are we surprised at this point? Next, I read Heartbones by her. This was fun because it was set in Texas at a beach kind of near where I was from, but I didn't love it as much as her other books. Still, like, everything by her is like at least a 4 stars, usually 4.5 or 5 stars, but it was good. It was very good for summer. I definitely recommend reading it during that time. Next, I read Layla. This book literally hurt my brain. Like, it was so good. It's like a paranormal romance situation, so different from anything I read this entire year. Definitely one of my absolute favorites by her. So good. And then last, I read Regretting You. This one is a little bit different from her others. It kind of focuses on like a mother and daughter situation. Still very good because everything she does is very good. Her plot twists just blow my mind. And then next, the other author I absolutely fell in love with this year, going back to her from the Devil's Night series, Penelope freaking Douglas. I think this woman is my favorite author of all time. Her books, like, she's known for being spicy, but like her storylines, everything about her, like, she is just incredible. The first standalone of hers that I read was Tryst 6 Venom. This is a sapphic romance, a bully romance. It was very good. I said in my review, it reminded me of like Shameless meets Outer Banks meets Gossip Girl, and I still stand by that. Like, literally, that's totally what this book is. Next, I read Birthday Girl. This is a girl and her boyfriend's father forced proximity situation. It sounds bonkers, and it kind of is, but it's not as bonkers as you think. I promise. It's kind of like wholesome, believe it or not. This book is so good. And then these last two, like, my favorite books of hers that I've read. This one in particular, like, I can't explain my love for it, and I can't explain why I've thought about it every single day since I finished it. It kind of concerns me a little bit because it is absolutely off the rails, but Credence. If you guys know me at all, I never shut up about this book. I never stop recommending it. This is the craziest book I've ever read. Like, just absolutely wild. It's like this girl that her parents pass away suddenly, so she goes to live with her uncle and her cousins that aren't really related to her because they're her dad's like step brother and his sons, and they're like in the mountains where it's snowed in all year, and it's just crazy. It's so good though, I promise. Like, one of my favorites all year. And then Punk 57, this one again is just incredible. It's kind of another bully romance situation. It kind of reminds me of A Cinderella Story, the movie, meets Mean Girls, but that's not even like a good enough representation of it. It's just, it kind of blew up on TikTok, so you've probably seen it at least. I promise, it's so good. But you have to read Corrupt in the Devil's Night series before you read this. Just trust me, it'll be worth it. And the third author that I discovered and loved this year that I think is going to round out my holy trinity is Mariana Zapata. I've read 3 of her books so far, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to read like the rest of them in 2022 because I can't get enough of her. She's kind of known as like the slow burn queen, and I feel like that title is completely deserved. She absolutely keeps you waiting, but it just builds the tension so much, and her stories are so interesting. There's always like fun little elements to them that make them so unique, but her writing style is just so particular to her, and you just know when you're reading a Mariana Zapata book, and I'm just obsessed with her. The first book I read of hers was Colty. This is a soccer player and her coach. She's a professional soccer player, and her coach was her like greatest idol growing up because he was a professional soccer player, and now he's her coach, and they do not get along at all, but also she like idolizes him, and there's some major tension there. It's so good. This one, however, was one of my favorite books of all time. One of the best, absolute best books I've read all year. The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. This is a professional football player and his assistant. There's like a fake dating element to this. It is so incredible. Like, I know the cover is like a little bit bonkers, and you might, like, if you're not a sports girl, if you're not a football girl, you might be like, not into that. Just trust me, this book is everything. And then from Lukov with Love, this is an ice skating romance, and enemies to lovers forced to pair up to figure skate professionally together, best friend's brother situation. Good old time. Good old time. The next author that I read multiple books for this year was Emily Henry, People We Meet on Vacation and Beach Read. This was one of my favorite books all year. 5-star friends to lovers. They go on vacation every year. Obviously though, present day, we know that they stopped talking, something caused them to lose connection, but now they are reuniting, and every other chapter jumps back to vacations they've been on like over the years, and then present day, we're like seeing this tension between them, like what's going on. Adored this book. Beach read, however, hot take, everybody but me on the planet loved this book. I did not care for it. I thought that the plot just went nowhere and made no sense, and I thought it was so just lacking next to People We Meet on Vacation, but that is just my opinion. Please nobody kill me. I just didn't, it didn't vibe, wasn't for me. And I believe this is the last author that I have multiple books for, Miss Tessa Bailey. She is the queen of having absolutely adorable covers that are so freaking deceiving because her books are so ridiculously graphically spicy, and it is just, it's kind of nice because it looks so wholesome, but then on the inside you're just like, what is happening? It happened one summer. It was a Schitt's Creek inspired romance. She did it so well, so good. I loved this book so much. And then Fixer Up, brother's best friend, fake dating situation. It was cute, not my favorite. Spice was a 5, Story was like a 3, but I'm totally gonna read more books by her because I just know. I know I'm gonna have a good time. Okay, now at this point, I just have a bunch of like random standalones left, so I'm just gonna go through those. My Policeman by Bethan Roberts. This is a romance book that Harry Styles is starring in the movie adaptation of next year. I had wanted to read it for a while, and once he got confirmed for that role, I was like, okay, I'm definitely reading it. Absolutely heart-wrenching, but very, very good. If you're a fan of him, I totally recommend getting your hands on this and reading it before the movie comes out because it's gonna be rough. And then I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This is a sci-fi book, not my typical read, but I had a family member that passed away this past year, and this was her favorite book in the entire world. Not to totally get dark here, it's fine. But they handed these out at her memorial service for people to read, and I read it, and it just completely made me feel like I was like talking to her again. It just fit her so well, and yeah, it was cute, it was different. And moving on, I reread The Fault in Our Stars, my favorite book of all time. It destroyed me for like the 10th time over again. I will never shut up about this book. This book changed my life. This book has given me a perspective that no other book ever has. It's just the greatest book to ever exist. Next, I read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This was very interesting, again, very kind of eye-opening, in the same category as The Fault in Our Stars. It follows this girl that has decided to take her own life, and whenever she thinks she does so. She wakes up and she's in this library where you get to like pick out books, and each book is like a different version of what your life would have been if you would have made a different decision. So it's really interesting. She goes through like all these versions of her life. Like it's just a very eye-opening book, very interesting book. Again, one that I feel like everyone could benefit from reading. I really liked it. Serenading Heartbreak by Ella Fields. This was a brother's best friend love triangle situation. Again, this book was so good, but it also like hurt me a lot. Yeah. Daisy Jones and the Six, so freaking incredible. Listen to the audiobook before you read the actual book. It follows, it's like a documentary script format of this fictional rock band that was like the biggest band in the 70s. It's like talking to each of the members, seeing how they came together, how they rose to fame, then ultimately how they broke apart. It's just so incredibly well done, and I cried when it was over because I wanted so badly for it to be real. I wanted to listen to their music, but I cannot because it is fake. But there is allegedly a show being made of it, so hopefully we will get the music eventually. Just go listen to this book. Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Again, another like childhood friends to lovers, lost connection, reunited sort of situation, jumping from the past to the present. I adore that kind of book, like so much, but this book especially too, I did love until I didn't. When it was revealed like why the couple in it stopped talking, it like ruined the whole book for me. Everybody loves this book, just like Beach Read. I swear to God, like it's everybody's favorite book, but it just got so ruined for me in that one part, and I couldn't do it. But yeah. Dipped in Holly. This was just a spicy Christmas themed novella. It's literally like one 85-page spicy scene. Save this for Christmas next year, I promise. It was fun. In the month of October, I wanted to get my witchy vibes on, so I did a book battle between Witch Please by Anna Aguirre and The X-Hex by Erin Sterling. X-Hex was pretty cute, pretty fun, reminded me of like Halloween Town. Witch Please was the worst book I read all year. Literally just don't read it, but A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. This was the last book I read of 2021, I believe. Actually, I reread Ugly Love after it, but A Thousand Boy Kisses destroyed me. This is like probably the most beautiful book I've ever read. Incredible, but I've never sobbed more in my entire life. So do with that what you will. Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I don't think I've ever smiled more in a book. This book was pure butterflies and rainbows. It was the President of the United States' son and the Prince of England, enemies to lovers kind of situation. So freaking cute, just so good. One of my most viewed videos on my channel this entire year, and one of the ones I'm most proud of, was my first ever book battle that I did, and it was between The Hating Game by Sally Thorne and The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I did it because both of these are enemies to lovers workplace romances. The Hating Game ended up being one of my absolute favorite books of all time. Top 3. Fault in Our Stars, Ugly Love, Hating Game. Switch them out for the various moods of my life, but like, adore this book with everything in me. The man in this book is my ultimate book boyfriend ever. I will never shut up about this book. It is my absolute freaking favorite. Spanish Love Deception was also really good. This is written by a like booksta person. She was a bookstagrammer turned author, and now she's like a full-time author, and it's so freaking inspiring and awesome. So I totally, if you love The Hating Game, you would love The Spanish Love Deception. It's just, this was like God tier for me. This was still very, very good. The guy in this book is mwah. Just both of these, very special place in my heart from that video and just everything that came out of it. Okay, we are winding down here, guys. These are my last 5 books. The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. Another enemies to lovers workplace romance. These people that don't like each other are forced to do a radio show together where they pretend they are exes, giving dating advice. That's like a really crappy, like quick synopsis of it. But this book, again, if you love The Hating Game, you would love this book. It was super, super good, super fun, and a very different type of setting. The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. I genuinely just didn't like this book. It was like a childhood friends to lovers fake dating situation. It didn't personally do anything for me, so I wouldn't waste your time on it. The Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood was one of my absolute favorite books I read all year. Cannot say enough about it. It is another fake dating kind of workplace romance situation. Can you tell the kind of books I like to read? This guy in this book was based off of Adam Driver, and it was just perfect. It was actually like a Reylo fanfiction if you're into Star Wars, but you wouldn't know. If you're not into that, you wouldn't even know. It wouldn't matter. But I love this book. Chapter 16. If you know, you know. The Kiss Quotient by Helen Wong. I actually did a book battle of these two together in the same video. The Love Hypothesis obviously won because this was one of my favorite books. The Kiss Quotient is super popular, but again, just like did not do it for me personally. Don't regret reading it though. It was fun. And then the last book. I don't know why this one ended up being the last because it wasn't technically the last book I read, but To Love Jason Thorne by Ella Mays. This is a childhood, friends to lovers, brother's best friend, fake dating, forced proximity situation. I freaking loved this book and I'm so excited to read the next book in the series, To Hate Adam Connor. Going to be doing that very soon, but this book was so good and I feel like so many people ended up reading it after I recommended it. I got so many messages of people that read it because I talked about it and that just like made my heart explode. It was amazing. But yeah, guys, that is just about every book I read this year. There were a couple I didn't mention because I already donated them because I didn't love them very much. And a few others I'm probably forgetting, but I read about like 87 books this year, I think. Should I just like get this in the background? I mean, that's pretty impressive. I'm pretty proud of myself. It's been an incredible year. I just want to thank you guys so much for sharing any part of it with me that you did. If you read any of these books, feel free to give me your thoughts. Let me know what your favorite book you read this year was. Ugly Love and The Hated Game, like I said, interchangeable because the moods, they're so very different. Again, I will be making a video in depth of my favorite reads of this year, talking about all of them more. All these books have their own videos if you'd like to check them out. But yes, I think that's it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will talk to you very soon in 2022. It's already 2022, but you get what I'm saying. Okay.